The Lord be with you and with your spirit. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to you, O Lord. Now a certain man, Lazarus, was ill. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Mary was the one who anointed the Lord with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair. Her brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent a message to Jesus, "Lord, he whom you love is ill." But when Jesus heard this, he said, "This illness does not lead to death. Rather, it is for God's glory, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it." Accordingly, though Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus, after having heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this, he said to the disciples, "Let us go to Judea again." The disciples said to him, "Rabbi, the people there were just now trying to stone you, and are you going there again?" Jesus answered, "Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Those who walk during the day do not stumble because they see the light of this world. But those who walk at night stumble because the light is not in them." After saying this, he told them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I am going there to awaken him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will be all right." Jesus, however, had been speaking about his death, but they thought that he was referring merely to sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus is dead. For your sake I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him." Thomas, who was called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." When Jesus arrived, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now, Bethany was near Jerusalem, some 2 miles away, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them about their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary stayed at home. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even though they die, will live. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, the one coming into the world." When she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary and told her privately, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when Mary heard it, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary get up quickly and go out. They followed her because they thought that she was going to the tomb to weep there. When Mary came where Jesus was and saw him, she knelt at his feet and said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was greatly disturbed in spirit and deeply moved. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, again greatly disturbed, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, already there is a stench because he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believe you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus looked upward and said, Father, I thank you for having heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I have said this for the sake of the crowd standing here, so that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with strips of cloth, and his face wrapped in a cloth. Jesus said to them, Unbind him and let him go. Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what Jesus did, believed in him. The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ. Good day, my dear brothers and sisters. Today is the 5th Sunday of Lent, and today is the last Sunday of the season of Lent, because next Sunday we are about to begin the beautiful celebration of the Holy Week, because next Sunday is the celebration of the Palm Sunday. For this Sunday, allow me to share with you 3 points, and our readings for today, especially our gospel, it tells us about the nature of our God. It tells us about what kind of God we have. What kind of God we have. And the message of the gospel is very clear. First, we have a God in the person of Jesus Christ. We have a God who can transform our sorrows into joy. Here, the experience of death is a very painful experience. Even Jesus cried. He was greatly disturbed about the death of his friend Lazarus. And that was also my experience when I lost my mom 5 years ago. But here, the gospel is telling us that when we encounter the Lord will change our mourning into joy, into dancing, into rejoicing. Friends, we have also a God who tells us to get out from the tomb. What are you trying to tell us, Father Jack? Well, the first message that I would like to share with you today is this. In a moment of a hopeless and helpless situation, the gospel is telling us that God is the only solution. Friends, in a moment of a desperate situation, go to Jesus because he is the only solution. And second point, in a situation like this, the pandemic brought about by the threat of the coronavirus, the gospel is inviting us to behave like Mary. To behave like Martha. Why Martha? Because we are encouraged to believe like Martha. Believe like Martha. In a situation like this, we have to believe like Martha that we can rise up from this pandemic. We will rise up. And I believe that if God can raise the dead, he can also stop the virus to spread. And the question is, the question of the gospel. Do you believe this? And that's the question of Jesus. Do you believe this? If you believe, you will see the glory of God. Therefore, keep believing. Keep believing. Keep trusting the Lord that with the help of God, we can get through these difficult times. I think the experience of Martha is perhaps the experience of some of us now. Maybe some of us, we are very desperate. Perhaps some of us are hopeless, or maybe perhaps some of us were helpless, or maybe some of us, we were discouraged. And we're like Martha, we're asking the Lord, Lord, where are you? Lord, if you have been here, this would not happen. This statement of Martha, Lord, if you have been here, this would not happen, is just, in my own reflection, it's just like Martha is blaming Jesus for the death of his brother. If you have been here, my brother would have not died. There are moments in our life that we are like Martha because sometimes we think that it seems God is very slow in answering to our prayers. Sometimes we think that there are moments and events in our life that we think that God is absent. We are tempted to think that sometimes God is not listening to our prayers. Lord, if you have been here, this would not happen. That was also my experience in my life. I thought God has forgotten me. Because, if you know the story of my life, I was ordained late at the age of 35. I waited for 18 long years. And I thought God has forgotten me. But I was consoled when I happened to read the Bible, and it brought me to Psalm 40 verse 1. And it says, I waited patiently to the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. Maybe we are like Martha and we're telling him, Lord, if you have been here, why are you very slow? Why, are you not listening to my prayers? If you have been here, this would not happen. If you have been here, my brother would not have died. But the Lord is telling us today, when we encounter the Lord, when He comes, the Lord is not late, because when He comes, He will, He will make all things beautiful. As what the line of the song that says, in His time, He will make all things beautiful in His time. Therefore, what I'm trying to tell you guys, the second point is this. Don't lose your hope. Keep believing. I think you heard me saying this one. Keep believing. Why? Because blessings may be delayed, but it's never been denied. Believe like Martha that we can rise up from this pandemic. And finally, I would like to speak about the topic that maybe all of us don't like to talk about, and it speaks about the reality of death. The gospel, it reminds us that the reality of death. Maybe some of us, we're hiding in the tomb. Why? Because we are scared. We are terrified. We are scared because we are afraid to die. We lock down, we isolate ourselves, and in the trending term that we always heard in the news, the term quarantine. It's just like this is an experience of hiding in the tomb. We are afraid. But hey, the gospel is presenting us the image of death. And here, in the 5th Sunday of Lent, it is telling me and you that death is just like sleeping. Death is just like sleeping. It is just like sleeping because our faith in the resurrection tells us that we will rise again. We will rise again. It is just sleeping because we believe one day God will wake us up. To conclude, at the end of the gospel, Jesus is telling Lazarus, Lazarus, come out of the tomb. And this is, I think, similar message is Jesus is telling us today. Jesus is inviting us to come out of our tombs. It means, friend, don't lock yourself inside the tomb. Get out the tomb, because the tomb is dark. The tomb is stinky. Don't stay in there. Don't lock yourself. Get out. I don't know what your tombs are. Maybe some of us, our tomb is a tomb of pain brought about by a painful experience. Maybe some of us, our tomb is financial tomb. Maybe some of us, our tomb is a tomb of addiction. Addiction to gambling, perhaps addiction to alcohol for some others, or perhaps the tomb of a toxic relationship. Today, the Lord is inviting me and you. Let us get out from the tomb. Rise up. Don't stay in the dark. Get out. Because amidst of this seemingly dark, there is a light. And that light is Jesus. And friends, to prepare ourselves for the wonderful celebration of the Holy Week, let us ask the Lord to give us the grace of faith to get out from our tomb and rise up. Remember, in a moment of a desperate situation, God is the only solution. In a hopeless and helpless situation, God is the only solution. With God, we will rise up from this pandemic. Finally, don't be scared to die. Why? Because death is just like sleeping. One day, God will wake us up. Those who believe in Him will never die, but will have life eternal.